19-4. Handoff, right side, Sama. Another great cut by Sama. Gets away, and he's going to...
All right. Welcome back. Whenever you're listening to this, whatever day you're listening to this, welcome back to Victory. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever you guys get this. Thanks for tuning in. As always, this is the Cyclone Fan Perspective brought to you by Play the Fight Song Podcast. We are a college football only podcast where we cover everything you want to know from everything that involves college football. Week 11 was also just another great week. I always say it because the sport never seems to let me down. And I'm joined by my brother Justin once again, where we will cover the Cyclones, another team that did not let us down this weekend. I just got off the plane from Provo, from Salt Lake City area. Had a great time this weekend. As always, we have many thoughts on our mind from a great Cyclone win that we have to get off our chest. So might as well get it out now more than ever. Justin, how are you doing? Well, this is a lot better when we can chat after a win, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't complain when the boys are going bowling. So
the boys are going bowling. It is always weird because while this was an awesome road win, it kind of like hid the fact that we are going bowling. Like this Cyclone team who lost to Ohio 2 months ago is going bowling out. Hey, I don't have a Bible on me right now, but I'm an honest man. Did not think this day was going to happen in the year 2023. You're an optimistic person more than I am, but I think you can agree you did not see this team going to a bowl game a couple of months ago.
I mean, I wasn't super confident that it was going to happen, but especially looking at the schedule, it looked a lot tougher than it ended up kind of rounding in shape. So like, I thought like there was a lot more games that we were going to have to win that we shouldn't have, which looking back at the schedule now, there really hasn't been a game where all of our wins are games we should have won.
Yep.
Like we're still looking for a win this year that we're like, oh damn, that was a pretty big upset.
But I also don't want to take that away from the team. Like,
what
better way to get win number 6 than on the road, in dominating fashion that you did.
Yeah,
Cyclone fans knowing the way that our teams usually handle this situation, most Cyclone teams don't go into that game last night and not only dominate, but leave no doubt and win in a night game at prime time against a historic college football program that, you know, being down there myself, they take an absolute ton of pride in their night games and in their football team. So I will get into it a little bit. I'm sure the boys will ask me during the podcast this week for week 12, but Provo is just a like first class town, like great people. I met a couple of, I can say they're friends now down there in BYU. I think there was a mutual respect between the both of us. You know, we kind of had a good bond we just love football. We love college football. We love sharing a couple of
those guys beers. You're posting about.
Yeah. My guy, I think it's in Cougar and U2 Blue. Those two guys, those are my guys now.
They look like they had a lot of passion for the Cougs.
Yeah, I gave them the idea of Ames, and I don't think it's next year, but 2 years from now or 3 years, whenever they come to Ames, they're definitely more than welcome, and we gotta give them the same hospitality they gave us because, man, that was a blast. I usually make a road game every year, and there was no regrets that I chose that one last night. That was a lot of fun. But let's talk about what most important. The fun really surrounded itself, winning football games and winning by a lot. Cyclones go on the road. They win 45-13. Biggest takeaway for me, and Justin, I know you kind of have a similar idea, is the third down conversions, and I know I'll let you kind of talk about for that, but I think the biggest one for me on those third down conversions was Nate Shieldhouse's play calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were a couple of plays that really stood out to my eyes. He kind of stuck to his guns. Iowa State was the more physical team. I said going into last week, I was like, I don't know if we want to approach it like we did with Kansas. Like, we're the more physical team. Let's go dominate them up front. I just didn't love that idea. They kind of strayed away from it a little bit, but really they kind of just told me to shut up and watch us run the football. And that's what they did. So yeah. I tip my cap. I'm wearing my Coach Campbell hat tonight to tip my cap to the coaching staff and the play calls that they had. talk about the third down conversions. Talk about your biggest takeaway from the win in Provo.
Yeah, just from right out the gate. I mean, getting the turnovers this week was huge too. I know that was a key that you were talking about for the Kansas game. We need to get some turnovers. That obviously we had the 1 pick six. That didn't help. We lost that turnover battle. It was just like, I don't know. We did a really good job of taking advantage of our opportunities. I know it was the second drive of the game. We ended up kicking a field goal. You were texting me at the time. You're like, left some on the board there. But really outside of that one drive, we were just really clean and crisp, it felt like, on like all
I
aspects
think
of the game.
I could say that field goal possession was our worst possession. I thought they made the most of every other serious drive that was in the football game for those first 3 quarters.
I just remember the biggest takeaway I had is like right away in the first game, because I went back and looked. We were 8 of 14, was it, on third downs?
8 of 14.
That's pretty impressive for any kind of team, especially for an Iowa State team. Like and they were like in big moments too. You said yourself, Shieldhouse is drawing up good plays, but Rocco was staying in there and he made some really good throws.
Oh my God. That was I don't know if I want to say it was his best game as a Cyclone so far, but especially being there, though I know those throws look tight on TV, but man, it was even worse in person. Like there was a couple of times I legitimately thought it was picked off.
You could tell those were plays that they had practiced, and Shieldhouse told him, like, this is where it's going to be. You got to stick it. And he trusted him, and he made those plays. And receivers did a really good job too, I thought.
Yeah,
definitely a lot better than they did a week ago.
I thought they really tried to – I think Rocco's trying to find a number one option, and I think he's, like, deciding between Bramer and Higgins right now. He really tried to force the issue to Bramer a couple of times. There were a couple of double coverages that he threw that was a little sketchy. But it's kind of nice to see as a young quarterback that he's trying to find a go-to guy, because I think that's what's going to take it to the next level. And if the freshman can get a connection like that, I think that would be huge. But everybody else, like you said, Noel Jackson even had a couple of catches. Higgins had a couple of catches. Bramer was the only one that
I like Higgins and Bramer, and Noel is the guy who finished today with 2 touchdowns too. It was good to see him getting going. Yeah,
that's what I want to break off into. I like to go back and talk about the 3 keys and how it kind of separated from this one and last weekend against Kansas. I think they kind of checked off all the boxes as far as my 3 keys and how they won the football game on Saturday. The first one I had was establishing the short passing game. And you said it perfectly. Noel had that short route, was that little out, and he just used his speed to take it for 65 yards or whatever it was.
It's what he does. Yeah, it's definitely what he does best. I don't know why we don't try to get him in that a little more. I love when they're getting him in those short yardage plays like that.
He kind of adds like almost another running back. I feel like, sort of, the running backs had a great day, but it kind of feels like he can be a part of that group with the scheme that they run up when they get him out in space, and he can use his playmaking. I thought my favorite play call of the day, I talked about Shieldhouse's play calls for those short passing routes. How about that third down conversion to Bramer on a screen pass? One of the catches that Bramer did have.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Is that not that's an elite level play? Like everybody talks about Shieldhouse. He's going to be a future head coach one day, hopefully later than sooner. And I thought that was like I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was like an NFL type play call. That was one
of the biggest things I was gonna touch on last week, being the first week you're gonna have me on, is like I thought I was gonna come into the game coming in here talking about like how good Shieldhouse was, and because they've been putting together some really good games. And I thought obviously at the beginning of last week they got a little conservative.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's been a night and day difference from even the beginning of the year and from last year, just like how creative this team can be, and you can just see the trust that everybody has in each other. And when they get that momentum going, I mean, obviously we haven't beat any of like our big opponents yet, but like I don't think it's going to be out of the question if we can get the right momentum going.
Right. And I think I said that last week in the recap too. You never want to lose games, but I don't think Iowa State plays as good as they did yesterday without losing last Saturday. I think everybody learned, from coaching staff to Rocco to the entire offense in general. And I think Shieldhouse, the way he responded just shows of how an elite coach he really is, I think.
Which they're obviously one of the youngest teams in the country. And yesterday it really stood out. They did not look like a young team yesterday. It's like even
No.
watching like the Baylor and Cincinnati games against teams we should have beat, which we handled on the road. We never showed up and looked as crisp as we did yesterday.
No, I thought that looked like a veteran Big 12 team. Second point I had down was you got to get after Retzloff. He's just a second start. He's kind of a junior college under-recruited guy. I think he kind of has a gunslinger ability to him, but I think Chris Williams said it best at his halftime show yesterday. Like, he has never seen something John Haycock's thrown at him in that 3-3-5. And you could tell in the first half, he's tried to scramble, I think, the last 4 passing attempts before the first half. I think he tried to run every single time because he just didn't know where to go with it. You pick him off in the very first play. I mean, how do you set the tone better than that? To get after that kid and to really rattle his cage. He had 6 total passing yards in the first half. So
things were going well for us yesterday, especially right off the bat. But give credit to Iowa State. I mean, they took advantage of those opportunities. Not like they squandered really any of them, but
no,
yesterday was one of those days where things were going our way.
You see a young quarterback like that, or a fresh quarterback to the Power 5 level, and you take advantage of it. You got to do with what you're given. So definitely giving credit to where it's due. Last one I had, you just take the crowd out right away. This was a night game. They'd lost 3 times since like 1984 at home at night. And how do you win on the road in that kind of environment? You take it out right away. And let me give you 3 drives or 3 results from the first quarter. Interception off the first pass, muff kick off the first kickoff return. And then after they did bounce back and went down the field and scored, which I thought was impressive, we put them in a Surrender Cobra stranglehold, and we go like 6 minutes and score before the end of the first quarter. So any momentum that they thought they had, out the gate.
Yep.
So
yeah, I remember. I think the last thing I texted you and Dad, I was like, "This is fun." Didn't have a whole lot of like serious analysis. Just like they were just doing everything so well. I know that BYU team's not very good, but it's just really nice to see a young Iowa State team go on the road and execute the way they did.
7 yards per play on the road. And it felt like it. Like you said, we got every third down. It felt like every time we ran the ball, we got 5 yards a carry, that is like Chinese to us. We never have seen that all year.
Usama.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Let's get into that. So if you have to give a player of the game, is that your guy? Is Sama your guy?
I would say Rocco, just by how little of mistakes he made all day and some of the big throws. Like overarching, I would say Rocco, but after not seeing Abu at all last week, I don't know if it was because of injury or that fumble he had in the Baylor game, but after not seeing him play and then getting his explosive plays back in the offense and seeing some of those cuts he made too, it wasn't just him, like the O-line doing it all for him and him getting outside. He had some nasty cuts I hate it. They were talking on the broadcast. They start out the game, they start comparing Rocco to Brock. And I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, so we're doing that. And then they start comparing Sama to Brees. And I'm like, guys, please slow down. But he played well. They
both looked legit. God, I don't want to go off this tangent about how to compare those two, but they do.
Slow.
Those two and Bramer, I mean, these are all freshmen. Like when Brock was what? Junior when Brees came around. Brock had Akeem. Brock had like a veteran like weapon skill set. And he had a lot of help to get started. Like these guys are doing it all on their own. Like Bramer, Sama, and Rocco. Those are 3 freshmen like doing it all for your offense right now. And I don't know that we're not going to get into that huge comparison yet. That's another reason to be excited for next year. But we have 2 more games.
And I don't want to discount the other guys. I mean, Jalen obviously finished with 2 touchdowns, and both Sanders and Norton both averaged at least 6 yards a carry and both had a touchdown on their own. So
I will say Sanders is still your one back. I thought Sama played awesome. He's explosive, but you can always rely on Sanders. Mm-hmm. My player of the game is going to be on the defensive side. I'll give that one for you. I'm going to go Jamison Patton. I'm not sure how much we'll see him the rest of the year because it sounds like Jeremiah Cooper is going to be good to go for Saturday, which is awesome. But for him to step up in that position, for number 1 to get a pick was really cool.
Yeah.
And number 2, after that first true possession, I should say, where BYU went down and scored, he really stepped up big time and helped the Cyclones to an awesome defensive performance on the road. You're asking a lot for a guy, and we know how much of every single guy is important to that secondary for John Haycock's defense. And for Patton to step in there after Blake Thompson kind of struggled last week, it was nice to see a new face step up when his name was called on. And the other guy I want to highlight is Joey Peterson. I thought he hasn't gotten enough credit for the defensive line. The defensive line has been solid, but sometimes it doesn't get enough credit. And I thought he had his best game as a Cyclone. So that's who I'll give it to on the defensive side.
So that's why you're the guy who runs the podcast, because those are two really good, like important, like guys that kind of go under the radar. I mean, our secondary looked light years ahead. That was kind of something I worried about. And like you said, that drive where they did get it going, started to have flashbacks to the week before with them just kind of picking us apart a little bit, but they steadied it up and obviously figured that out pretty quickly, especially as you said, with Patton being a freshman on the road too. That was big time.
Yep, absolutely. More young faces. We just see it every week, which is really positive as a Cyclone fan. Now, let's wrap it up by looking at the next 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about the mindset of last week. My mindset was still get to 6 wins. It's mission accomplished for me. But then Kansas and Oklahoma State had to go do Kansas and Oklahoma State things and lose 2 games that they really shouldn't have. Let's recap the Big 12 really quick. Then we'll get into bowl game options. Oklahoma State goes on the road and doesn't even show up. I'm not sure if they even got on the plane. They lose to UCF 45-3.
Did you get to see any of that?
Yeah, that was the morning game. Maybe one of us here is not smart and had a best bet of Oklahoma State -2.5. So
we were watching all the games here, and Blake had a bunch of money. He's an Oklahoma fan. He's got money on Kansas. And if Oklahoma wants to make the Big 12 championship, he needs Kansas to lose. And he's sitting there rooting for Kansas. I'm like, dude, shut up. Like, what are we doing? So once Kansas loses, we all throw a bunch of money on UCF, and we're like, it's time to ride.
Yep. Now we're emotionally hedging.
Iowa State's getting back in the driver's seat here.
See, well, the last couple that I thought were huge in Big 12 play, yep, you're right. Tech goes in to beat Kansas. Bean goes out in that game. They go to their third string guy. That one's a little more excusable than Oklahoma State, but still, that was really important. They had to have. Texas barely beat TCU on the road, 29-26. They had like a 26-7 lead.
They were sleepwalking.
Yeah, that's what this team continues to do, and we'll get into them later in the week. But the big thing for them is Jonathan Brooks tears his ACL. He's the running back for Texas. That's a massive, massive piece. Like, that could be, quote me here, that could be more important than Quinn Ewers going out.
He's having a hell of a year.
Yes. And Oklahoma beats West Virginia at home. Cincy gets his first win in Big 12 play against Houston. Barf. I had Houston. Baylor gets killed again at Kansas State. We are starting to see the final days of Dave Aranda. After Jimbo gets fired this morning, I thought Dave Aranda could have very well been in that spot.
Yeah, they probably will. Now, they probably didn't want to be the first one, but I'm sure it's coming now.
So let's move on to that. Iowa State holds its destiny, controls its destiny with 2 weeks left. I don't really want to talk about Dallas and all of that because I just wanted 6 wins. I don't want to change my mind week to week. I don't want to be that guy. They got what they wanted. I think now everything else is a cherry on top. You're going to get more experience. You're going to get that bowl game and everything else. Now, I'm not playing for Dallas. I'm playing for a good bowl game. So let's talk about that. Possible bowl games, and I want to get your thoughts. Right now, if say we lose these next 2 weeks, God forbid, you're probably going to see an Independence Bowl versus maybe a Pac-12 team. Right now, Dennis Dodd has Minnesota on it in Shreveport. That's where he has Iowa State right now.
Does Minnesota have 6 wins yet? No, they don't.
They're 5-5. Yeah, they're on that Big Ten West list of like.
Yeah, there's only one team in the Big Ten West more than 5 wins. So
yeah, so somebody in the West. So it could honestly be anybody. Maybe it's Wisconsin or Northwestern or who knows. The next one, I think, if we stay at 6 wins, will be the Texas Bowl. And if Texas Tech gets to 6 wins, we probably will not make this bowl. will probably stay in Shreveport. But if Texas Tech loses out, very possible, we will be playing in the Texas Bowl. That's versus an SEC team. So those are 2 6-win bowl options. I think I know where you're leaning. I would want to play an SEC team. I don't know about you.
For sure. Especially this year when I think the SEC, especially the bottom half, the SEC is kind of down. Because like I said earlier, like we are obviously having a good year, bowl game. No one expected that. But I do want to see us win another game where people don't expect it really from us. And even if we're playing like a down SEC school, just getting a win like that would be huge.
Absolutely. I want to see Auburn or Florida or Mississippi State. I think those are 3 teams
Florida would be fun.
Could be very well a potential matchup for that bowl game. Lastly, if they get 1 or win 2 more, and then they would get to Dallas. This is where it gets tricky. So I'm going to say they win 1 more. Say they split it. They go 1-1 these next 2 weeks. You're going to see an Alamo Bowl or a Liberty Bowl. Liberty Bowl will probably, I've seen matchups with another SEC team like Mississippi State's on that option with Kansas State right now. And then the other one was the Alamo Bowl, which would be, I think, let me go back and look. I think that's a Pac-12 bout.
Yeah. That was the last time we made the Alamo Bowl was Washington State.
Yes. So that's out of those 2.
If we somehow made the Alamo Bowl, would we get matched up with like an Arizona?
That's who. Thank you. I just pulled it up. They have Arizona listed as the Alamo Bowl, a team that's playing really good football right now.
Yeah,
I
don't think we'd be favored in a game like that, but that would be a great opportunity for us.
Would you rather play in San Antonio or would you rather go back to the Liberty Bowl?
I would rather have the San Antonio game, I think.
Yeah.
Easier for our guys to get up about, and like our fan base would travel way better to San Antonio, I feel like, than to the Liberty Bowl.
And then it gets, if Iowa State somehow, say they win these next 2 and then they lose in Dallas, I have no idea where the hell they're going. I don't even know where you would put that at-large Big 12 berth. 8-5, I'm not sure. It's not a New Year's Bowl. No. So I have no idea where you'd put the Cyclones. So
I just want to win next week.
Hey, we know we're just going to have an extra game on the schedule. That's all we know. That's all we got. If you're a big Cyclone fan and you love to travel, those start marking your calendars. Maybe you get some travel plans together. So that's where you're going to look at to go watch the Cyclones play at the end of December. That's it. That's all we got for us this week. Much better vibes this week. The Cyclones are going to bowling. The Black Hat is on 7:00 next Saturday. Iowa State hosts Texas. I will give you guys that preview later on in this week. Massive one for the Cyclones, massive one for the Big 12. Honestly, it's one of the better games in college football. It's probably the top 3 matchup in college football for week 12. So a lot of eyes are going to have it on that game. Justin, before we go out, anything else you want to say on this victory from the Cyclones?
Not too much more on this victory. Just we will be winning on Saturday. Just going to put that out there now.
All right, I think you did that, so now we have to bring you back next week. He's already guaranteeing a win, so he's got to defend his statement. For that, thanks again for tuning in, Cyclone fans. Listen this week for Play the Fight Song. We will be airing our Week 12 preview on Thursday. And as always, from the both of us, go Cyclones.